Hey, what's going on, Who That Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast. And for a few minutes, want to talk a little bit about, well, I guess you can call this part two of Brandon Marshall's comments. Now, if you did not check out part one, I encourage you to check out the previous video that I did. I talked a little bit about Brandon Marshall and his controversial comments on ESPN First Take. But on this video, I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that Brandon Marshall said that were true. Now, come on, Who That Nation, we got to be honest with ourselves. We got to be honest with ourselves. Everything that Brandon Marshall said was not a lie, okay? The part about the Saints window being closing, that's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, why would you even think that the Saints window would be possibly closing? The Saints are bringing back the majority of everybody that was on the team last year, and they went 13-3. I mean, whatever. But I have to admit, there were some things that he said that were true, and we're going to go ahead and break those down. Shouts out to my man Iceman T, because on the last video, I noticed that he commented, he said people are upset that Brandon Marshall told the truth about the New Orleans Saints, and what he was saying was true. Now, some of the things, once again, he said were ridiculous, but there are some things, I will admit, he said that were true. For example, Sean Payton. He said that Sean Payton has all these talented players: Alvin Kamara, Drew Brees, Michael Thomas. I mean, he has a defense that went from worst to first. That is absolutely true. The defense was struggling at the beginning of the season, and they turned the corner, man. They became an elite defense. The offense, I mean, you have a plethora of weapons. You have guys that are so talented, and it just seems to me that Sean Payton, when it comes to calling playoff games, when it's crunch time, it seems like he just folds like a cheap tent. And a lot of the plays that were called in some of these games, man, were just absolutely ridiculous. I feel like he's a little bit too pass dependent, and everybody in the league knows that. Everybody knows that Sean Payton wants to throw the football all over the place, and he just refused to commit to the run. And people can put up all these analytics and stuff like that, and Sean Payton can talk about, well, we ran this, ran that. You know if you're a running team or not, okay? You can say it, you can disguise it, you can slice it up whatever you want, however you want to slice it up. You know that your team is not a running team. The New Orleans Saints are the playoffs. When the game is on the line, when the chips are on the table, Sean Payton does not call a good game. I mean, even the NFC Championship game, the Tommy Lee Lewis play. I mean, the couple plays before that, he calls a quick slant from Drew Brees to Michael Thomas instead of him running the football. Who cares if they stop you on first down? The clock is still running, or you're making them have to use up their timeouts. I just feel like he out-schemes himself because he overthinks every particular situation. I've heard Sean Payton say on several occasions that he dots every I and crosses every T, and sometimes he dots those I's and crosses those T's all over again. He talks about how he just obsessive when it comes to certain things, wanting everything just to be perfect and correct. But sometimes, man, you can't just out scheme everybody. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's just cool to just run the football or let everybody know exactly what you're doing. The reason why I'm saying this is because all those guys that you have on your team that get paid, they get paid to block, they get paid to run, they get paid to catch. So who cares if everybody in the building knows you're going to run a football? That other team still has to stop you. Another thing that he said, he talked about how the Saints offense has been exposed. To a certain extent, yes, it has. Because once again, all they want to do is throw the football all over the place. And the fact that the Atlanta Falcons, of all teams, my bad, not Atlanta Falcons, that team, when that team played against the New Orleans Saints, they exposed them when it comes to them being up front. They lined up their pass rushers in the A gap, and they went right at Drew Brees. Now, we will have to admit that Drew Brees isn't going to run out of the pocket, okay? And he's a short guy. So if you're running straight at him with pressure and you're putting it right in his face, it's going to be hard for him to make decisions. That part of what Brandon Marshall said was true. But at the same time, the Saints still put up 46 points on a team that had the best defense in football. The Saints still found a way to beat a Tennessee Titan team that made it all the way to the AFC Championship game. So for him to say that people have just figured out the Saints to a certain extent, but not all the way, okay? So I will give him the benefit of the doubt with that. I say that to say this, folks. The New Orleans Saints do have some issues that they need to deal with. But I don't think that it's something that will cause them not to make the playoffs or not to win the division. One thing we definitely have to agree on, and I'm pretty sure everybody in the Who Dat Nation agrees with this, the Saints have to commit to the run. They got to run the football more. They got to be more physical up front. And they cannot rely on Drew Brees to throw the football all over the place. These are the type of things that are going to help the Saints make it all the way to the Super Bowl. If they continue to play the way that they have, they're going to be a team that are always going to be a contender, going to always be vying for a playoff spot. Heck, probably always going to win a division. But the story at the end of the season is always going to remain the same. Close, but so far. But I would love to hear from you. What do you think about Brandon Marshall's comments? Do you think that some of the things that Brandon Marshall said were true? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Comment down below. Like and share this video. This has been the State of the Saints podcast. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. YouTube.com, search The State of the Saints podcast. And also Facebook.com, search The State of the Saints podcast. Till next time, all I got to say is, who dat?